Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Good News with Kevin Danielle. I'm your host, Danielle.
No.
You really don't react very fast to that joke. You don't find it funny?
I don't find it funny. Okay. I know funny. That's not really funny. Okay. But maybe you find it funny.
They probably don't find it funny. We're just trying to keep things fresh around here, okay?
I guess that's important.
My name's Kev.
And I'm Danielle.
And it's great to be back here with each and every one of you for this episode. Before we dive into today's topic, man, I would just really appreciate it if you would just take a moment to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment, and share this video, because we really believe that there's some really good news that our world needs to hear about, and we would love to partner with you in getting that good news out there.
It's so true, eh? If ever there was a time when we need good news in the world, this is it.
Especially, it is around Christmas time right now, too, but not that this is a specifically Christmas good news message, but yeah, the world could really use a little bit more good news. And that's why we've changed things up a little bit here on the Good News with Kevin Danielle show. What did we do? We changed it. What did we change? What are we doing now?
So we're still doing good news, but instead of talking about good news kind of in the community and things like that, we've decided to make a focus on good news of what God has done in our lives and in the lives of other people.
Right. So what we want to do is just share good news stories of the way God has shown up in people's lives, the way that God has blessed different people, and how God is just continuing his good news message that is fully available for everybody in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and how that good news just continues through how you and I live our lives.
And it sounds really strange, like the whole idea of good news through Jesus. Right. But we talk about, and we're hoping to get many other interviews where we hear from people who talk about the actual change that putting faith in Christ has made in people's lives. And I think these will be really good stories. We started with mine last time, and it was a bit of a vulnerable
It is, isn't
story.
it, when you share your story like that?
But I think it's important to talk about what God has done in our lives. And this time, you're on the hot seat.
I am on the hot seat this time. And this is a big deal for me because even though I'm a public speaker, I'm a preacher and things like that, I can be a little private. And, and you share a certain amount, but...
He can be a little shy,
I
introverted.
Can be a little shy. I know people are shocked. No one believes me when I say I'm shy and introverted, but...
I think there's a lot of people out there that are, maybe have public roles, but yet it seems like they would be so extroverted, but they're actually particularly introverted. Right. You and I are both a little bit that way.
A little bit, exactly. So that's why we wanted to kind of start this new model of good news with Kevin Danielle, starting with us. So we're never going to ask anyone to share something that we would not be willing to do. So that's why we started with us, and we look forward to having additional guests coming with us in the weeks and months ahead. So we're going to turn it over to a little video that we've put together just of me sharing my story.
So do you have a word that you would say this story kind of mine was vulnerable? What would you say yours is?
That's a great question. I would just say transformative.
Transformative. So watch this with Kev's transformation, a transformative journey that he's been on.
Great. Testing. Testing.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So the key is to not move and shake around too much because we don't.
All right. So I'm just going to ask a series of questions.
Sounds good.
Great.
I'm a pretty eclectic guy. I have a lot of interests. Grew up kind of heavily immersed in geek culture, comic books, movies, science fiction, fantasy. Pastoring was a second career. I originally was a computer consultant for about 13, 14 years. I knew there was a tug in my heart between good and evil. I knew within me, I, Kevin, am capable of great evil. Even though everyone thought I was a great guy and a nice guy, I knew my thoughts. I knew what I was struggling with on the internet. I knew all of these things internally secret that no one else knew. And so I could be selfish and prideful and arrogant and cruel. And I knew that. And I knew nothing could set me free from that, because trying to do it on my own, I was never successful, even though the whole world thought I was this great, wonderful guy. So you're capable of great good, yet you're also capable of great evil. And that's that sinful human condition, that you can't save yourself from this great battle going on in your heart, that you need a savior, and that there's nothing that you can do to save you from your sin. There's no religion that you can keep, there's no tradition that you can keep, that it's only the death and the resurrection of Jesus that washes us clean from that sin. It was an easy jump to go from this big epic battle to this personal battle happening in my own heart, in my own life. And so when I read that passage, it said, believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord, confess with your mouth, and you'll be saved. And that's what I did all by myself on my commute to work. So that day for me is, and I say this with all sincerity, it sounds so hokey to say it, and I realize this, but on that day, Kevin Presso died. Kevin's wants, his desires, his dreams, his passions, all of the things that I was spending so much time, energy, money to try to create, I was just set free from all of those things. And this weight was lifted. And I actually prayed, God, like, I'm giving you my life. Do with it as you will. I will go, and I remember praying these words, like I prayed, I'll go anywhere, I'll do anything, and I'll say anything, as long as it's for you. And I just remember just feeling so amazing that this battle is won. So even though there's still struggles and there's still temptation, there's still all of these things, but in that moment, I knew beyond a shadow of doubt that the battle's won. And someone won it for me. My life hasn't been perfect, far from it, but it's been blessed. It's been blessed. And that's why when I say the words that I have the privilege of pastoring Greenbelt Church in Ottawa, that's not a catchphrase. It's not a bumper sticker. I really am privileged to be able to do what I'm doing. Because I know my past. I know where I came from. I know what my heart used to be like. And the fact that God chose to use someone like me to pour into people, to build into people, to encourage people, to disciple people, to lead in our nation's capital, I can only give glory to God for that. So just fix your eyes on Jesus and go where he calls you to go. Do what he tells you to do and say what he tells you to say. And you can't go wrong.
Well, I hope you found that story helpful. As I've shared
Transformative
that,
anyway, definitely.
Yeah, my personal story with God and how God has shown up in my life has radically just changed so many areas of my life. It wasn't just so much I'm living my life and now I have faith in Jesus and I'm just trying to take that faith and jam it into my pre-existing life. It really did change everything and transform everything.
It's not like I have my life and then I have my faith. It's like your faith has become everything for you.
Absolutely, yeah. It's become kind of the center point of who I am, and every other part of my life, my marriage, my parenting, my jobs, my career, have all been an overflow out of my faith. Instead of living my life and then maybe tweaking faith in there a little bit on Sunday mornings or Wednesday afternoon type of thing, right?
And speaking of that, your story that you shared with us is very much your earlier part of your journey.
Right.
But it seems to me that there's been more transformation all the way through.
Right.
And when you talk about that spiritual transformation, it seems to have had an impact in areas like your emotional health and well-being, your physical health and well-being. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, I think the journey that I personally have been on, particularly over the last couple of years, has been a continued transformation journey in the area of mental health, spiritual health, and physical health. And I've I talk about these things in different areas whenever I have the opportunity to, because they're so intertwined. They're so intimately intertwined, and sometimes we don't know the best way to improve our physical health, our spiritual health, or emotional health. We think it might be just a physical thing. Well, if I just exercise more, if I just ate better, then I'll feel better. But it could
which can be true.
which can be true. But sometimes in order to improve a physical ailment, you actually got to start with your head. It's actually a battle in your head that's happening, and you got to deal with some emotional health. You might have some mental health stuff to work on, right? Or it might be a spiritual thing. Like you might have to do some work spiritually, to get unblocked physically or emotionally. And so they're just so intertwined. So I've really been on that journey over the last few years of figuring that out in my own life.
It's interesting because for both of us, we've sort of seen how those different aspects of who we are really impact one another. And
Yeah.
it's like, how can you separate things, right? And say, oh, this is just spiritual, or this is just emotional, or just physical. So how
Right.
has that played out in your life and your journey? What has, what have the latest transformations been in your life?
The latest transformations in my life. So what I began with, especially when I turned 50. So I'd been on a journey, again, of transformation over the last few years. I went through some leadership development where it really had you kind of look under the hood of your own life, of who God has made you to be and the call that God has on your life. And I really got this impression that God was calling me to be a spiritual father to many, to have a gospel impact in this generation for generations to come.
What does that mean?
I know it seems very big and very heavy, but it's actually not when you unpack it. But a big part of it was stepping into kind of this role of a spiritual father. And, whether it's in my church, whether it's for my own parents, whether it's just in the people who come in and out of my life, is playing more. I used to see myself more as kind of the angry brother type of. When I was a younger man, I was all kind of full of spit and vinegar, and I was just on fire and cranky, and I was just like storm this hill for Jesus type of personality. But as I've gotten a little bit older and more wisdom, more maturity, and more aches and pains of just being older, right, has kind of slowed down and matured that spit and vinegar type of personality into one that's more contemplative, into one that's more caring, into one that's just trying to provide more fatherly advice.
Now,
Right.
before you go on any further,
Right.
let's just clarify a little bit, because we have an audience that possibly, and you've noticed in a lot of things that you've done online, where there
Right.
are people that have reached out to you and said, like, I don't even have a father,
Yeah.
let alone spiritual father.
Right.
Right? And so what does that mean to you to be a spiritual father, and what can our audience be looking for if they don't even have a father, let alone to
Right.
even know what a spiritual father might be?
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the sad state of so many people's upbringings, whether, you had a father but was not around, or neglectful, or a father who was dealing with their own demons, like dealing with their own struggles, their own pain, and didn't have a healthy way to process that pain. Sadly, that propagates in so many different ways, and we see that in our country, and the fact that our ministry is now connecting with people all over the world, we really see that in other parts of the world. Huge fatherlessness problem. And so what does it mean to be a spiritual father? Well, I think that's something that so many people have got to go on that journey of exploring what that means, right? It's knowing that there's someone who has your back. It's knowing that there's someone who loves you unconditionally. A spiritual father is not someone who loves you based on your output, on how you perform, but someone who loves you completely and totally unconditionally because they are your father.
Wow.
Right? But they still do want the best for you. Right? And they want to see you grow and mature in such a way that you have a godly impact in your own personal life and in the life around you. Right? And so that's something that I'm very, very passionate about. And God really kind of put this on my own heart at the beginning of 2020, so long before the pandemic started, that if I was going to live out that role, like be transformed from an angry brother to, yeah, let's all do this, storm the hill together, to being more of a spiritual father, I had to go through a transformation to deal with my own emotional junk. And so went back to Christian counseling to kind of deal with some of the things, I kind of tightening the bolts to work to go on that journey to be emotionally and mentally healthy. I've taken my spiritual journey a lot more seriously, probably more seriously now than I've ever had, just in that regular quiet time, even if it's only 5 minutes a day. One verse a day for 5 minutes can make a massive difference in our own hearts spiritually.
What do you find that does for you?
For me, it grounds me in starting my day. So I usually just use my YouVersion Bible app on my phone, and I just look. It's not any more complicated than the verse of the day. And I just grab the verse of the day, and I sit in it. Like the other day, it was, you are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. And just that reminder, hey, Kevin, God is asking you to bring light into this world. God is asking you to bring saltiness, and not salty like negative salty. Oh, that person is so salty. Not that, but salt preserves and salt transforms. And God wants to use me as light to bring joy, to bring peace, to bring hope into the world. So how can I do that today? So even just one verse can really transform us spiritually.
So you've talked about emotionally, you've talked about spiritually. These are awesome transformations.
Right.
But I think you've also had, I'm your wife.
You kind of know what's going on. I've been doing it in secret.
I think you've also had a physical transformation. Is that true, Kevin?
Yeah, and so I've also taken my physical health very seriously over the last couple of years, and I have plans to really even ramp that up in the new year as well. So I've been doing a fitness program called DDPY Fitness. I started it in March of 2020. And by doing this, starting off just 20 minutes 3 times a week, then turned into 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, turned into 4 times a week, 5 times a week, sometimes even 6 times a week, up to an hour a day, 5 to 6 times a week, just exercising.
So I'm tired just hearing that. So how about if you start with, like that transformation initially of even 3 times a week, 20 minutes each?
Well, because what I was finding is, again, as I've been getting a little older, I'm a little more tired, a little bit more worn out, more back pain, more hip pain, more joint pain, more headaches, more sleepless nights. And it's like, which then impacts me emotionally. If I don't have a good night's sleep because I got a back pain, then I'm miserable to work with the next day. So it affects my mental health. And then if I don't sleep well because of my physical pain, then I can't get out of bed early because I had a miserable night's sleep, and then I don't do my Bible reading, and I don't do my prayer in the morning. So all of these things directly connected. So by doing the DDPY Fitness program, what it has taught me to do is to bring in a little bit more discipline into my life. Not a little bit, a lot more discipline in my life, because I had none in the area. I was always the guy who was skinny and healthy, no matter how many poutines I would eat in a week.
Yeah, I hated that.
Yeah, exactly, or I just stopped eating bread and dropped 30 pounds in 2 weeks. That's just the way I've been blessed. But again, hitting 50 was a game changer. So to be much more intentional, and by doing this program regularly, what it has done, it has allowed me to drop 40 pounds. It's taken away a lot of my back pain. There's still some, but there's taken away from a 10 to a 3. It's helped me sleep better at night. It's made me more focused. And then it's allowed me to bring other discipline into other areas of life as well, mentally and spiritually. And so, again, just how they're all connected. And so this has become such a big passion of mine to push myself and challenge myself. I'm actually getting certified to be a level 1 instructor in this to bless other people. And really my heart's desire in the new year is to do a lot more coaching specifically to other Christian leaders. Because I think so often we just think It's just a spiritual problem. If I just pray more, if I just study my Bible more, if I just write a better sermon, then all my problems will go away. You might need to get on the mat and do some push-ups.
And also on the other side of things too, right? We can tend to think sometimes it's just physical. I need to get my physical in order and
Right.
forget about the spiritual or the emotional.
And you might have an emotional thing that you need to deal with. You might need to go see a therapist. You might need to go talk to your doctor about dealing with your depression and your anxiety. They're so intertwined, and I believe God works in amazing ways when we look at that holistic approach to our wellness. Because I think when Jesus said that he came to give life and life to the full, yes, there's a future promise in that, but there's also a promise in how we're called to live our lives today. And my greatest desire as a pastor, as a husband, as a father, is to see more spiritual fruit in my second half of life. I think it's very easy for us as pastors, for us as leaders to go, start coasting in ministry. We've spent the first 15, 20 years figuring out who we are and how we want to do ministry, and then we just settle. But Jesus, again, said, when you sow seeds, when you just invest in people, Jesus wants to bear much fruit. 30 times, 60 times, 100 times more than what was previously invested.
So what does that look like practically? So
Practically, what I want is
fruit.
I want to see more people blessed. I want to see more people. Like, we have a vision as a church of having an impact for 10,000 people, impact in the lives of 10,000 people. Now, I can't do that by myself. The way that impact, and I mean a positive impact. We can impact a whole lot of people in a very negative way. That's not the point. But the point is to have a gospel, good news message of Jesus impact on the lives of so many people, 10,000 people here in our city, here in our nation, around the world. And so that means creating a healthy environment. But in order for me to create a healthy environment, it comes from me being healthy.
Yeah, we had that kind of revelation a number of years ago as leaders, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Where it was like, if we expect our kids to be healthy, if we expect our family to be healthy, if we
Absolutely.
expect the people in our workplace to be happy or healthy, or in our congregation,
our congregation, in our community, and
then it has to start with that guy or that girl over there.
No, it starts here. It's trickle down, right? It is
Right.
that ripple effect when we step out in faith, trusting God to transform us, get us out of those old habits, out of those old thoughts, and to do it in such a way that there's a maturing process. Again, doing it in such a way that works with being 50. I'm not trying to work out in a way that's for a 35-year-old, but I'm healthier today than I was when I was 35.
So in closing up, if you
Yeah.
could tell somebody who is 35 now,
Right.
some wisdom
Yeah.
that 50-year-old you wishes 35-year-old you knew,
Yes.
what would you want to tell them?
Reach out to a spiritual father. Find one. They're out there and they are willing to come alongside you. But I think we're stuck in this rut in our Christian environment where we desperately want someone to mentor us when we're younger. And older people desperately want to mentor someone, and both are waiting for the other person to ask.
That's a problem.
It's a big, big problem. Like, kind of older people feel like, oh, I'm not useful anymore. I don't have anything to offer. You have tons to offer, but you don't feel like you can impose on anybody. And younger people, you're figuring, especially younger leaders, I think you struggle. There's a little bit of spiritual pride, if we were really honest, and I know because I had it, that we have to, we figured this out all on our own. I got my master's degree. I proved to the world that I'm capable of doing this. And then we just try to keep proving to the world we can do it on our own. And we wait way too long to ask for help, whether it's emotional health, whether it's how do I help my wife in what she's struggling with, whether it's how do I help my kids in what they're struggling with, whether it's, man, since going into pastoral ministry, I gained 50 pounds. What do I do about that? A lot of us did that when we got out of seminary and started working in churches because the Baptist potluck took us all out. And we need to reach out. So 35, younger leader, find a spiritual father and just send them some questions. Can I meet with you? Can I take you out for lunch? Can I pay for a coffee and talk about these 3 things. And I'm still doing that. I'm still finding spiritual grandfathers. I just did it recently where I took an older gentleman out for coffee who's a pastor, he was a pastor in the Salvation Army denomination for decades, and just took him out. Like, can I ask you how you handle this? Because it's so crucial, I think, in the day and the age that we live in.
So if you're looking for something transformative in your life, whether it be emotionally, spiritually, physically, whatever that might be, ask for help. Find somebody that you see something in them that you want to have emulated in your own life.
Yep.
That's basically it, isn't it?
And then it will have a ripple effect everywhere that you go. We use this term a lot now, you and I, but it's just the truth because we've seen it in our own lives, and we want to encourage that and bring that good news into many other people's lives as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for putting yourself out this week
Woo,
this month.
I'm all sweaty now. Okay, there we go.
And we will look forward to the next episode where we'll hear another good news story.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
God bless you, everybody.
God bless.